Over the course of this year, this restoration project has felt like a series of separate construction sites scattered along a former canal route. Now we're starting to see how all those pieces connect together. We're visually seeing those dots being joined. It's the 23rd of June today, so let's catch up with what's happening down here at the Chesterfield Canal Restoration in Staveley. Today we'll see how the new sections of the canal are being joined together, take a look at the latest progress on the Keith Ayling Lock, and find out why those bright white sheets suddenly appeared across parts of the site. As always, we'll also have a bonus section where we take a look at another interesting part of this historic canal. New path there. I assume that's going to be some stairs down towards the lock. It's only been a fortnight since I walked through here with Gordo, and already so much has changed in that 2 weeks. 2 weeks is such a long time on this project. A visible progress, look, just down between the bridge abutments there. We can see the rebar and all the reinforced concrete sections there. We can see where they're going to be that go between the abutments, but look, we can see the path all the way now. We can actually visually see that all the way up to the new lock, and they were just getting ready just to pour that concrete base when I was here a couple of weeks ago. It's going to be mid to high 30s this week, temperature wise, obviously, that is, and they're talking about record high temperatures for June around this part of the country, well, all the country really. I was here through the winter, wasn't I, and I was commenting, you know, these guys working in the wind, in the rain, in the freezing cold. Anyone who works and has to work outside when it's like this, people always say, yeah, we've always had hot weather. It's worth a shout out to people who keep the country moving, people who do jobs like this, you know, people who support Britain's major infrastructure, policemen, firemen, ambulance people. I can't imagine having to wear PPE and do manual labour on days like today. Right, so let's have a look at the lock gates. So in that last video, we filmed actually going inside that lock, and I've done a couple of subsequent sort of stuff on Facebook and a couple of YouTube shorts showing they actually lifted the lock gates into position. And we can see now that we've got the balance beams on both ends of the lock. The two at this end and one at the top end. First time I've seen it as well, where we've actually been able to see the line of the canal between the two. Just a little word about those lock gates. We touched on it last time, didn't we? That they're made with a recycled composite from wind turbine blades. These will still be covered with a timber, but these timbers can be easily replaced. A lot cheaper to replace as well than replacing the whole lock gate. And the balance beams we can see there, I believe they're just conventional wood. They're just your standard balance beams that you'll get on any lock. So let's have a look at the view from the bridge, shall we? I just love how much this changes from week to week, I really do. A bit of footage from earlier this month on the 4th of June. The main composite sections of the lock gates had been installed. These had been lifted into place the previous week, and the adjoining fixtures and fittings were being attached. And we can see them starting to excavate the channel east of the lock. And there's a view over the lock, look. So that's the first view I've personally had while it's had the balance beams on. We've obviously spoke a lot about the Keith Ayling Lock, and rightly so. It's a massive milestone in this project. All these little bits that have been going off, the abutments, the lock, the Bellhouse Bridge, the Bellhouse Narrows, all the basin going out there. It now feels like all this is now finally just being joined together, and we're actually visually able to see it all being joined together. And look, we can now see the excavation that goes underneath the bridge here. They're actually starting to cut out the cutting of the canal under the bridge. Just that little bunding, isn't there, between the abutments and the end of the navigation in the distance there. That's all that's stopping that water from cascading down there at the moment. Obviously the canal's not sealed, not suggesting they should be doing that just yet. But let's have a look, because I think there's some really exciting stuff going off at this side now, looking over towards Bellhouse. So look, we've got the excavation going off down here. There's more rebar concrete reinforcement going over. We can see actually where the canal's going to be going here, at the specific alignment it's going to be taken. Something interesting here I just wanted to point out now. Somebody was showing me this a couple of weeks ago when I was here. Can you see the red colour in the sides there? You see it? The red brick, that's red brick, that. What that is, that's the foundations. That's part of the old Great Central Railway Bridge that used to stand in this location before this new footbridge. Obviously that bridge was demolished many, many years ago now. As you start digging down beneath the surface, you're gonna probably find the footings and foundations for structures like that, because it was quite a hefty structure. Maybe part of the wing walls there you can see just stretching out. One thing I found really fascinating while making these restoration updates is seeing where people are watching from. I've had comments and messages from all over the UK, Europe, North America and even Australia, all following the progress of a canal restoration here in the old industrial heartlands of Derbyshire. It still amazes me that a project like this can attract interest from literally the other side of the world. So let me know where you're watching from today. Leave me a comment below and tell me where in the world you've joined us from. Shout out to the volunteers as well. The Chesterfield Canal were doing a grand job of watering this. You're doing such a good job that these trees are blocking my view. Looking down there now, never mind. The wet weather and then the hot weather's massively accelerated growth, hasn't it? And everything, weeds, trees, grass. You just about still see the lock from down on here, down on this platform. Work continues to prepare the cutting of the canal between the lock and Bellhouse through the other old railway abutments. In this section, there will be a mixture of a concrete base and clay lining. And we could already see some of those L-shaped prefabricated units being fitted, and there's many more of those on site waiting to be lifted in. All the masonry's gone, hasn't it, from the other bridge abutments that sit between Bellhouse and the Keith Ayling Lock. But look at this. What are these coping stones? Are these for the edge of the canal then? So here we are then, we're down at the Bellhouse end of this restoration phase. And I do appreciate, and I always say this, don't I, it's not the best vantage point down here. The majority of the good stuff we want to see isn't greatly visible from here, other than the back of the Narrows here. So let's have a look at what's going on, shall we, from the drone. That's a lot better view from up here. And this end of the restoration has moved on massively. The geosynthetic clay liner was laid, and you might have seen the bright white sheets in some photos. This would be quickly covered up. We can also see the work on the overflow weir just there, currently being installed at the soon-to-be head of navigation. You might have noticed those bright white sheets appearing across parts of the site, the geosynthetic liner. Some more details about that now. It's essentially 2 layers of fabric with a dry clay in between. The idea is that once it's weighted down and covered with the canal bed materials, when it then gets wet, the clay swells up and forms a waterproof seal. I just want to spend a few minutes just to mention George Rogers, the Chesterfield Canal Development Manager. Well, that's one of his jobs, amongst many other things across the waterways of Britain. Now, he's been out doing a challenge. He's been raising money for 2 charities, the Campaign for Better Transport and the Chesterfield Canal, which is obviously his day job. So George did this challenge last week, and he had to get, which way round was it now, John O'Groats to Land's End in under 24 hours by public transport, going the entire length of the UK in 24 hours and only public transport. More tricky than it sounds. I've got his time here. Where is it? I've lost it on my notes here. His time. So he had to do it in under 24 hours. His time was 23 hours, 57 minutes and 1 second. Just snuck in there, George. Very well done. I just happened to be on night shifts when George was doing his overnight stint in that 24-hour period. It was quite addictive watching, because he set a live tracker up on Google Maps. I mean, he was doing it for his own reasons, which I won't go into on here. And he was also highlighting just the trials and tribulations, as well as doing something like that on public transport. So much stuff out of your control there. Well done, George. And anyway, time for the bonus section of this video. I'll see you down in Kilamarsh. Look at this shade. Might just stay here all day. This is lovely. This month's bonus feature, I've come up a couple of miles north from Staveley We got say a handful of miles, I'm not sure the exact distance, about 5 is it? Staveley's 5 mile post, is that a 10 mile post just around the corner, so just under 5 miles. This is the Transpennine Trail I'm walking on here, also the former Great Central Railway. Rother Valley Country Park is in that direction, and Staveley and Rennishaw is in that direction. So we're on the railway line. You might be thinking, well, what's that got to do with the canal? Remember a couple of episodes ago, I think it was in March's restoration update, we covered the railway mile, which is just literally just up here, about half a mile up here. This railway line that arrived in the 1890s, obviously a long time after the canal arrived in the 1770s. And we looked at the impact the railway had on the canal, its change of alignment, how it was rerouted because of the railway being built. And you see here, just behind me, we've got this rather grand, big blue engineering brick structure. You probably noticed it if you passed through here on foot or on cycle on your way through Kilamarsh, just near the old station. Now, if you're like me, just before I really started to take a keen interest in this sort of things, you'd just be forgiven for thinking this was an old bridge abutment, or something like that, wouldn't you? You see, it's not an uncommon sight on disused railway lines. Look, got the buttresses there, 1 buttress, 2 buttress, and another buttress on this side. And it goes all the way down here. I don't see much this time of year, the vegetation's gone wild, and it goes all the way down here. In fact, look, here's the capping stone on the end of the wing wall. There it is. I'm not going through the nettles to get in there. You're still asking yourself, what has this got to do with the canal? And our Chesterfield Canal, obviously, currently out of use, abandoned. In fact, you'd struggle to even believe there was anything that ran up there in form of a canal. It's just on top here, right on top. And if we look at the maps, if we look at the old maps, you can see just how close it got, or just how close the railway line came to the canal. I'm guessing all this before the railway line came here. The embankment for the canal was probably enveloping all where we stood here. And when they put the railway line through here, they've had to cut into the embankment of the canal. And that's what this is. It's basically just a massive retaining wall. It's a retaining wall on steroids. If you're interested in your old railways and your old canals, and I know I repeat myself a lot with statements like this, areas like this are absolute. They're just there's so much going on, there's so much to see and so much to explore, so many remains. I mean, in terms of its structure and its integrity these days, I'm not seeing any cracks or any bulges or anything on this. This does look like it is still in good condition. It needs a little bit of repointing, a little bit of maintenance, but this has probably had no maintenance on this for 50, 60 years, I would guess. Well, not any serious maintenance anyway. Well, just look how big. Just behind Kilamarsh station then. Look, got a sign here, Cuckoo Way, Chesterfield Canal towpath, Chesterfield 10.25 miles. And there it is, there's the towpath. But before we head down there, because we're right on top of that retaining wall here, I just wanted to show you this, look, this old bridge. I think this is, what's this name of this now? I forget. Forge Bridge, is it? I believe from when I've put posts up on Facebook before that this is possibly an original bridge from the 1770s. And this is what took Field Lane over the canal. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that just as we're passing. Let's just have a walk down the footpath. As we've just shown you, that's not on this footpath isn't on the actual canal alignment, is it? But if you walk down here, you can rejoin the canal alignment, because this is the Cuckoo Way. This is your footpath if you follow in the route of the Chesterfield Canal from Chesterfield all the way to West Stockwith. You've got to spare a few hours to do the 46 miles. And I can see just over there, and again, the vegetation is not going to be doing me any favours here. Can you see the top? We're right on top of that retaining wall here. Look how close that is. So lots to consider when the restoration eventually gets to this point, isn't there? That retaining wall's going to be becoming very, very relevant. There's some cyclists just going on the Transpennine Trail there, just below the wall. You never know walking along here, the engineering that you perched on top of, quite literally perched on top of. We'll hand back to Staveley. It's getting hotter and hotter. Our nights tonight, I'm really not looking forward to trying to get to sleep this afternoon in this sea, but never mind, could be worse. See you later. A few months ago, this felt like a collection of separate smaller construction sites. A lock here, a bridge there, and a short section of the canal up there. Now we're finally starting to see how all those individual pieces fit together, and for the first time it's becoming much easier to imagine boats travelling through this landscape once again. So cheers for watching, we'll see you on the next one. Ta-ra.